at Newark. It's easy accessibility from Bingham as far as Witham, St Hughes, Southall, Fernwood, Bingham, Long Bennington. It's very accessible, easy to get to. And for those people, if they've got a minor problem or a minor injury or emergency, it's a lot easier to come to Newark and get treated at Newark if they know it's open 24 hours a day, rather than going to somewhere like Queensmead or Kingsmill. So it's really important that the protocols are reviewed, and these protocols are they set the standard for what can be treated in Newark. And the big issue is that if there's something wrong with you and you get an ambulance and you finish up getting an ambulance, you are not going to be going to Newark Hospital, no matter how minor that thing is. If that ambulance arrives, you're going to Kingsmill, you're going to Lincoln, or you're going to Nottingham. And it's a waste of money. It just doesn't make sense to me. Now, the big thing about this is that if we could stem the number of ambulances going out of Newark, it would actually improve performance. Patrick Mercer's here today, and he'll remember that when EMAS was under a lot of pressure, and he gave a presentation in the centre of town about EMAS, and there was a company doing some work for them called Process Evolution, and so we asked them to look at ambulance journeys and travel times. And then when they looked at it, they said if all green 2, 3, 4 calls, these are minor injuries and emergencies that we're talking about, if they were taken local, if they came to Newark rather than going elsewhere, then it wouldn't just improve the service in Newark, it would improve the service in the whole of the county. And the reason for this is simply because it would keep some of the ambulances local. Because when you get picked up in Newark and you go to Kingsmill, that ambulance doesn't come back to Newark, it goes through its next call, which might be Chesterfield, or it might be south to Derby. It doesn't come back to Newark. If ambulances were going into Newark Hospital, they would keep a certain number of ambulances local, it would improve the service for local patients, but most importantly, it would improve the service for everybody in Nottinghamshire. This was an article that was I think it was the Times, it was East Midlands Ambulance Service lost 25,000 hours in December to patient handover delays. Non-executive director of EMAS commented on how many minor injuries and emergencies impact on EMAS's resources, delaying care for more urgent cases. We're putting people in ambulances who really shouldn't be put they should be dealt with locally at home if they can. And if more local patients with minor injuries and nurses were taken to Newark Hospital, it would reduce the pressure on overcrowded A&Es elsewhere, free up more ambulances, and improve healthcare, and most importantly, save money. Something that Amanda Sullivan constantly used to say when this came around the first time around was, we're going to treat more people closer to home, and that just hasn't happened. There's been centralisation of care, and so the National Medical Director, Sir Stephen Palmer, said, if the health system wants to avoid a situation of overcrowding A&Es by 2034, then it must go for broke by moving more care into communities. Stop taking them to these major centres. And Sherwood Forest Hospitals Foundation Trust is actually moving in the opposite direction to this. They're pulling more and more people towards Kingsmill. And they need to be invested in this local service to keep more people at home. I mean, we all know this is all stuff that we want to make. It's really, really important. There's 3,000 homes being built at Middlebeck. This is 1 mile from Newark Hospital. There's more developments planned at Fernwood and Newark East. There's developments in outlying villages, so they're all growing. Witham St Hughes is becoming a bigger and bigger, well, it's a village now. Nottinghamshire District Council need nearly 10,000 homes by 2033. That figure it's bigger than that because of the latest government. The government has recently increased that figure, so it's over 10,000 homes by 2033. And Newark is the fastest growing town in Nottinghamshire, and we've got a hospital which they want to. Well, they don't want to grow the infrastructure with it. But I think a really important thing to bear in mind is that the largest increases in the population are people over the age of 70. Across the country it's 23.4%, but locally in Newark and Sherwood it's 26.2%. Now, I don't have to tell a lot of women I'm 70, so I'm in this bracket. You do tend to get more things wrong with you that don't require major surgery, but you need to either to get to a doctor or get to a hospital to get seen to. So, this creates more demand. Distance is a factor. There was some research done in 2014 that looked at distances from major A&Es around the country. And the one that's furthest away is the Eden district in Cumbria. Obviously a very, very rural district, really rural district. And that's 21.3 miles. But we're 21 miles from Lincoln, we're 22 miles from Kingsmill, and 24 miles from Queensmead. For a community of this size, I don't think there'll be many communities of this size that are as remote as Newark from a major A&E. Again, this is research that was done that I found recently, and it was published in one of the major papers. The longer they wait at A&E, the more likely they are to die within 30 days. Now, this isn't just talking about people who have something seriously wrong with them. This is research on people who've been brought into an A&E, left on a trolley, other patients go in front of them, and they're waiting 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever, to go through the system. So, and it's a new study carried out by the INS in collaboration with NHS England. And Dr. Adrian Ball said hundreds of deaths each week are associated with long waits in A&E. Each one somebody's loved one, mums, dads, sisters, brothers, grandparents. These aren't people that are actually dying in the A&E. These are people whose condition is made worse by waiting a long time in the A&E. And the thing is, these may not be newer patients, but they could be anywhere. But what's happening in Newark is compounding the situation. I had to go with my dad when towards the end of his life. I knew what was wrong with him. It was a urinary tract infection. The paramedics knew what was wrong. We still had an ambulance. We had to go to Kingsmill. We had no choice. He could have easily been treated at Newark. It was in the middle of the night. He was taken into the resource. Next to us in the resource, I spent 8 hours with him because he got dementia, so I'd spent 8 hours with him in Kingsmill. Next to us in the resource, they brought a guy in who was having a heart attack, and the crash team were around, and they was all working on him, trying to save his life. Simple fact, we was probably in the way. We was probably in the way. I've talked about this before, but this is really important. There's been a massive increase in the expenditure on ambulance and acute care. taking care away from home. The reason that there's been that increase is because waits in A&E, ambulances stood outside of A&Es, it makes great press. So the pressure is on always for the government to get people moving in A&Es, try and solve the emergency crisis. But they're probably doing the wrong thing. Research by the King Fund that over the past 5 years the NHS spending has grown unevenly across the different types. Whilst budgets for providers have grown, budgets have grown at the fastest rate for ambulance and acute providers, and least for community care providers. So the local services, the ones that will want, there's been a lack of investment there, but there's been a huge investment in emergency and urgent care. And this is an important fact. The number of district nurses and health visitors has fallen over the past 10 years. These are the people that will keep people in the home, will achieve what all the politicians say they want, but they can't keep pushing all the cash towards ambulances and acute care providers. This is a poor use of resources. Taking patients needing urgent care, minor injuries, it increases pressure on ambulance services. I've talked about this. When an ambulance reaches an A&E, it doesn't return immediately, leading extended waits in Europe. And despite all this investment, this transformation of the ambulance, this is something that Amanda Sullivan used to say, the ambulance is going to be your hospital on wheels. But it's not, it can't be. It can't be. And the important thing is just transferring patients that could easily be treated at Newark Hospital, 20 miles, taking them to A&Es. It not only doesn't work, it's inefficient, it wastes money, and it wastes time and valuable resources. Again, this is a report from the King's Fund. When you look at how the money is being spent, you can see that treating people more locally would actually save the NHS money. The King's Fund report, facts and figures about the NHS, sets out how money is used to pay for a variety of services. If that person goes into Newark Hospital or the UTC, the NHS pays £91. If that person goes, the same individual going to a major A&E department, Kingsmill, the costs range from £137 to £445. So it's cheaper to treat somebody in Europe. In 2023, the average cost of a patient taken to A&E by ambulance was £417. But that cost isn't borne by the hospital, it's borne by the NHS. So they pay. So it doesn't really matter to Kingsmill that person is not in an ambulance and £417 is being paid because they're not paying it. The NHS is paying it. So by treating somebody locally with a minor injury, you're going to save at least £500. Add on the wait at the other end at A&E, add on the potential risk to their health by being in the A&E, all of that, taking up time and space in the A&E, it's just a huge waste of money, and it costs money. Now this is a real coincidence, but on Thursday this week, I got a phone call from my son, can you go and pick up Lydia, my granddaughter, from school? She's got stomach pain. And I said yes. When I got there, they got her sat down in a classroom. There was a teacher there and somebody else, and I was already on the phone to 111. They'd been on the phone for 35 minutes, and I said to them, "Well, it's pointless sitting here because if you get an ambulance, you're going to be going to Kingsmill. I'll take her to the UTC." I took her to the UTC. She was seen within within 10 minutes. She was given pain relief within 10 minutes, which is an important thing, and that she was discharged later in the day. Now, if we'd finished up calling an ambulance, she wouldn't have been going to the UTC, she'd have been going to King's Mill. So yesterday, on Thursday, I saved the NHS about £600. Plus, I kept an ambulance on the road for a patient that might need it more. So now, just imagine how many individual cases there are in Newark every day that could go to Newark Hospital, that aren't going to Newark Hospital, that would save not hundreds of pounds, but thousands and thousands of pounds every week. So I don't understand this thing, we can't afford to do it, because it would save the NHS money. So, I mean, that's just to re-emphasise that. I mean, just treating people like that would simply save more people money. Now, I want to say something that's very important about one of the reasons, the key reason that I'm standing as a county councillor is the only way that we can get this decision back to the Health Scrutiny Committee for review is if we elect Labour councillors in the forthcoming county council elections. It's the Health Scrutiny Committee that has the power. They can recall it. The Conservatives aren't going to do it because the Conservative administration, well, they haven't even come today to speak to us. So the Conservatives aren't going to do it. The Independents and the Reform, they won't be able to do it because they won't have a big enough voting bloc. They will not be running the county council come May. So it's really important that people understand that a vote for a Labour candidate this year, because all of the Labour candidates in this area are committed to this. And if we get elected, we're going to get that decision back to the Health Scrutiny Committee and reviewed, and at the very least get a consultation so the residents of Newark can hear what we've got to say.